Really looking forward to the Robert Wuhl interview. I'm so glad he came on the Sherpa show.
He's also an Emmy winner as well. You're watching the Hollywood Nights?
Yeah. It's his first movie and I've never seen it. Would you like to watch it with me?
I've seen it several times. I'll make some punch for you just like the movie.
Thanks. That's so nice of you. What a thoughtful person you are.
Attention, rebels of the Sherpalution. Today's podcast is being brought to you by Audible. You can get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Sherpa. There are over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. And now Mr. Bruce will lead you into the Sherpa Chalet. As a reminder, please don't disturb the yak.
Coming to you from Sherpa Chalet in beautiful downtown Mount Podca, it's time for entertainment interviews in the Sherpa screening room. Grab an aisle seat and a bucket of popcorn, but don't crunch too loud or you'll miss the show. Now, here's your host, Jim, the podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels, and welcome to the last day of Hollywood Week here on the Sherpa Screening Room. It's me, Jim, the podcast Sherpa. Who else would it be? I don't know. Somebody who stole my mic? I don't know. What a great guest we have for the last day. I've been saving this one up for you. His name is Robert Wuhl, and you may know Robert from some popular movies such as Batman, Bull Durham, or Good Morning Vietnam, among many others, or even as the creator and star of his own HBO show, Arli. Or you may know him as an Emmy Award-winning writer of the Academy Awards show. There, I got that right. I kept missing that up. That's a tongue twister, folks. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yes, Robert Wuhl, yes. So he was a lot of fun to talk to and really knowledgeable about all sorts of stuff. We talked about sports, we talked about movies, we talked about music, all sorts of things. And I mentioned to him during the interview that I thought he would be a great podcast host. But then when I did my homework, I saw that he actually did host a podcast called Ipso Facto, plus a couple of other ones too. And he really likes doing that. He's a curious person. You'll see that on the onset of the interview. But he really gave me a lot of information. I like picking his brain. I can imagine him being a teacher and just really getting through to people. He's that kind of smart, you know? So I was glad that he was spending some time here. And I think you will enjoy the interview as well. So let's get to listening to my interview with Robert Wuhl. Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpalution. We've got a really interesting guest tonight. I'm really happy to have him. This is the do-over interview is what I want to refer to it as. But he is a comic, a writer, an actor, a historian, a director, a movie buff, a sports buff. The guy is just buff. And his name is Robert Wuhl. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Fine, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you for coming on the show. You know, a while back, I was listening to a podcast that you were a guest on, and I'm not going to name the podcast because I don't want to make it seem like I'm making fun of somebody or putting them down. And you actually started asking the host more questions than he was asking you. And it made me more interested in the show because I was thinking like, okay, what is he going to ask next? And it was rattling in my mind. He would be a really good podcast host. And then I realized doing a little bit of my homework, you were a podcast host. You had Ipso Facto.
I had like 3 podcasts at once. Yeah, no, I'm just inquisitive by nature. You know, how did you start your show?
This was really part of an evolution of podcasting because I was really just a music fan and I was running out of music to listen to that was, I'm getting older and sometimes, the stuff that I like is, hard to come by. So then I just started getting into podcasts and then I saw this app about doing your own podcast and I said, I could do this. And here I am. And it originally was just interviewing podcasters. And then I ended up hooking up with a publicist, a guy named Steve Joyner, and here I am interviewing people from the entertainment field. So it's an extension of the actual show called Too Many Podcasts. This is the Sherpa Screening Room.
Now, how old are you?
I'm 57.
Okay, so you're a little bit younger than I am. But what was you were in music that you loved so much?
I liked a pretty wide range of stuff. I mean, I'm really partial to like a lot of 80s music because that was like when I was in high school. Right. But I like 70s and 60s. I like classic rock, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Who. I usually have like a treasure trove of useless information in my head. I think I'm probably with music the way you are with probably music, sports, and history.
Oh, somebody asked me the other day who my Mount Rushmore of rock and roll would be. And I, off the top of my head, I said Chuck Berry, Elvis, Beatles, Stones. He said, well, the Beatles and Stones are groups, which, okay, but rock and roll is hard not to describe this without groups. So, I don't know who obviously the first two for sure. We lost Chuck Berry last week, and he's got to be in the conversation. And you got to have Ray Charles somewhere in the conversation. And but I think of the four. I would stick by, because I'll put groups in. It's not like an individual ball player or something like that, or president. I mean, rock and roll is groups to me. And I that would be my four. I would say Chuck Berry, Elvis, Beatles, Stones. Who would you put on your rock and roll Mount Rushmore?
I like actually your choices. It's really interesting, especially for laying the foundations of rock and roll, because Chuck Berry and Little Richard, they're the ones who really introduced the R&B to a white audience. But like Elvis and the Beatles, that was the music that they loved, so they really even made it more accessible to a lot more fans too. Wow, I don't know who else I would add to that. You could probably pick some blues guys, maybe like Robert Johnson or something like that. But for rock and roll,
Robert Johnson really rock and roll. It's like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Half of the people, I go, well, I understand what they're doing. It's hard because what it is. Rock and roll is, it's a certain genre, of course, of music. And it is pop music. But those are the ones I jumped out at me. Those are the ones that I thought of. I mean, I would have guessed. It's funny. I've been posting last couple of days. I've been posting on Facebook. I've always liked girl singers, always have, and I've been posting these YouTube. If I find these videos of some of the all-time great female singers, and the first one I posted was, are you familiar with Cilla Black?
Yes. Didn't McCartney write something for her once?
Cilla Black was the female pop singer. There was two probably female pop singers in London in the 60s. One was Cilla Black, and she does this great arrangement she does this great version of Alfie, which you see which George Martin actually produced. And Backrack actually conducted the orchestra while she created it. Cilla Black was, just because she didn't cross over that big to the American audience, but she was their, golden girl. Cilla Black, she's adorable. And the other one I posted was Dusty Springfield doing, what did I show her doing? She was doing The Look of Love, another Backrack song. Most of the Backrack songs that Dionne Warwick did here in the States were covered. Backrack had Dusty Springfield do them for the British or the Europe audience. And, so I put those two in it. And then I had Patsy Cline doing Crazy. And what was the other one I had? I had one more. Who did I have? It was four people. Oh, no. Know what I found? I found a great cover version of, believe this or not, of Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck at Madison Square Garden doing, ready for this? Moon River.
Wow.
and it is phenomenal. It is wonderful. I mean, Jeff Beck plays the lead. Clapton sings and does rhythm. But first of all, Moon River is probably one of the 10 best songs ever written.
Sure.
It is such a great song. I mean, and then I saw Elton John doing Moon River. It was just a great song. Alfie's a pretty great song too. It has one of the great lyrics of all time. I would put Alfie's lyric stuff just to anybody. The other two to me great pop, they're both country pop voices, which I love. I was going to post today is Dolly Parton doing her "I Will Always Love You" back in, when did she write it? Like in 72 or something like that? Or
yeah.
73? I mean, she wrote it for the, because when I was going to school in Texas, I remember she was on the Porter Wagoner show, and she was the girl singer. And that would be one. And the other one is Ronstadt. Ronstadt's voice is just sensational as far as pure chops. Her voice is quite remarkable. I think I could. She does a version of "I Will Always Love You" that's pretty great. But I think I'm going to post "Long, Long Time," which I've always loved that song.
That's a beautiful record. Yeah, and it's funny. Linda Ronstadt, I always felt that she could sing anything, and she did. You know.
And I was I was close friends with Glenn Frey, and Glenn was introduced her at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a few years ago. And Glenn told me, she could do anything. I mean, she had more, remember, because she was part of her backup band with Henley, and that's how they started the Eagles. Mm-hmm. But he loved, it was interesting though, because when he did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Linda couldn't sing, so they had this tribute to her. They had all these singers, and he had, who was there? It was Sheryl Crow, it was Bonnie Raitt, it was Stevie Nicks, and the one who impressed him, that he wasn't, he had not known her personally, but he said, boy, does she have chops, was Carrie Underwood. He says, Carrie Underwood could really sing. He was very impressed with her. But Ronstadt would have been the other one. This is not counting Aretha. That's a whole different category.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about you for a little bit, Robert, shall we? So you were a Jersey kid, and you ended up going to college in Texas.
Houston, University of Houston.
Did you become a stand-up right out of college? Was that what your plan was?
My plan was always I wanted to go into filmmaking, storytelling, producing and directing, writing films and stuff like that. So I was using, as a vehicle, I was using a road that like Woody Allen had used, and Mel Brooks and Albert Brooks and, Paul Mazursky. So they had all been stand-up comics. And so I started performing at the Improv in New York and Catch a Rising Star. And I figured I could write myself an act so they could see me. Now, I had a drama background. So at least that way I could be shown. Rather than wait for somebody to cast me as a comic, you present your own act. So you're visible. So that's how that started. And then very shortly thereafter, as I started writing jokes for Rodney Dangerfield, which gave me a leg up in the community. And in fact, Rodney brought me out to California about a year and a half later, and I started getting spots, and that's how it started,
Do you have a favorite Rodney joke that you wrote for him?
It's funny. I actually saw the first Tonight Show spot that he used one of my jokes the other day on YouTube. It was funny. I was watching Rodney, and I'm listening to the jokes, and I go, I remember this set. And then sure enough, bang, there goes my joke right there. It was a joke that I could not write today. It was something like, I'll tell you I'm fat. Oh, I'll tell you I'm so fat. I tried every kind of diet. I went on the rice diet. All I ate was rice. Rice for the morning, rice in the afternoon, rice for dinner. I'm losing weight, but I can't stop folding shirts. And that's a joke that you could not use today.
That is true, even though it's a funny joke. And if people want to check out your previous stand-up, I had seen a YouTube video of you doing a bit about Born to Run being proposed as the New Jersey state anthem, and I thought that was hysterical.
Thank you. What was interesting about that bit is I did a routine in 1981, 82. This shows you how great Springsteen is, the longevity. In 1981, 82, something like that, somebody did put forth a motion in the New Jersey State Assembly to make Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run the state anthem of New Jersey. So I just did this routine. I played the piano, so I did this routine, and I broke it down the song. Baby, this town rips the bones from your back. It's a death trap. It's a suicide rap. I broke it down. It was kind of funny. The amazing thing about this, I could still do that routine today, and it would be relevant because Springsteen has stayed relevant. Now, you're talking about a routine that is coming up on almost 38 years ago. Now, and you're talking about pop culture from 38 years. It's like I couldn't do a routine about My Sharona. I couldn't do a routine of Men at Work, which was from 82 around there. I go, but I could still do the Springsteen Born to Run routine. And it is amazing. That is a testament to the greatness of Springsteen.
There you have it. And also the way that you're writing a joke as well, too. There are no dated references in there. It's just the song that carries itself.
Right.
Exactly. Sure.
Exactly. But it's still relevant. You could do that to a young crowd because they know Born to Run.
Your first movie was Hollywood Nights. And I know you had the earlier careers of Tony Danza and Fran Drescher and Michelle Pfeiffer. And you were New Bomb Turk in that movie, who was, well, how can we put this politely? He has no filter. I got to tell you, first of all, that is actually one of my brother's favorite movies. He said if Robert Wuhl wasn't in that movie, he said I probably wouldn't watch it. That character, I mean, were you like that when you were in college? Were you kind of uninhibited, or were you just kind of a straight scholar?
Well, I was not a scholar. No, I was not a scholar. I guess there's a piece of me of New Bomb in there. I wasn't, he was a prankster. He was a merry prankster. It was fun. He was brash. I mean, it was a car club. The conceit of the movie as it was developed, it's sold, it was Animal House meets American Graffiti. Mm-hmm. And I got cast in the movie. I had just come out to California, and I improvised some comedy for the writer-director, and he gave me this wonderful part, and I was very fortunate. I mean, and that's a movie also that's like become a cult film. It's become what's interesting about Hollywood Nights is back in the early 80s, I think it came out in 1980. In the early 80s, it was one of the first films that went into the rotation on HBO. They would play it over and over and over and over again. And because of that, a lot of fathers, this is now you're talking about kids like 36, 30 years, watched it with their sons. Because it's a guy type of movie. So they watch it with their sons and laugh. And they watch it over and over. Now, what is interesting is it's 36 years later. We're actually, so it's almost 40 years later. It is 40. It came out in 1980. Now, all those sons have grown up. And they watch the movie with their sons or maybe their grandsons now. And, outside of probably Arliss and Batten, those two, I get stopped to this day more for Hollywood Nights than anything else. When I do cameos, those cameo things when you do the greeting stuff, when I do those, invariably, I would say 50% of the people ask me to do something about Hollywood Nights. I would say about 50%, I would say, yeah.
And you've done so much. I mean, you were in Cobb, you were in Batman, you were in Bull Durham. Do you watch your movies? Can you sit and watch them? I know some actors feel kind of funny about watching them.
I did when they came out. I don't watch them most of the time now. Now, something that happened is they're binging. There's a podcast, a radio. It's actually, I don't know what it is. It's a link. I don't know what they call them. One of these Zoom conferences. There's a thing called the George Lucas Radio Show, which is done by the guys from the Uptight Citizens Brigade comedy troupe. And because I helped raise some money for them, they have decided every Sunday that they are binging streaming each season of Arli, the HBO series. And then I come on and talk about it. So they started this last Sunday, and then we raised money. I sell autographs, and they raised money for the Food Bank of New York. And so to go on and talk about the show, I hadn't seen the show in about 25 years or so. So this last week, starting about a week ago, I had to rewatch starting to watch the episodes. And there's 80 episodes. So I'm through, I got through the first season, and now I'm starting the second season because it's on again Monday, season 2. So I have to watch that. And I watch me, and it's, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not so okay. I'm enjoying the episodes because they're smart, and I remember the memories and what we were trying to do and how effective we were or not. But I watch that. I'll watch, as a rule, not much anymore. In fact, I think I'm better off when I don't watch because that way I just do my work and forget about it.
Well, I guess as long as we're talking about Arliss, we can switch over to that. Now, was that actually inspired by you reading The Art of the Deal? Is that true?
Okay, it wasn't inspired by Arliss wasn't inspired by the Art of the Deal. What happened was I was writing. I had the job to write this satire on the world of sports, and as I was writing it, I had read the Art of the Deal. I just did not believe a word this guy said. Now I had met him a couple of times too, and remember we're going back 1994, right? Sure. So we're going back a long time here, and I thought. So I read the book and I did not believe a word of it, but I thought, boy, this would be kind of interesting. What we could do is, I said, when I'm reading the story, I think, boy, I'd like to know what really went on in this story that he's telling. He's spinning this line, and I can know what really went on. And so I said, wow, that's a good counterpoint to use for the framework of the show, in that Arliss will spin one story, like he would be lecturing, and then we can show what really went on and use that as a counterpoint to show how foolish she is. And now the cover of the book, because Arliss, the title card was Arliss, the Art of the Sports Super Agent. So that did come from that, yes. But once we got beyond that, I never thought about the book again until we went to streaming about a year ago, and I had to clear some music rights. And now, I realized, Jesus, I forgot about this.
The issues that you covered in the show were really also timely today. Here we go again with timeliness.
Well, I thought they were timely. Everybody tells me I'm ahead of my time. We had everything from domestic abuse to gay athletes to transgender athletes, Alzheimer's, unwanted pregnancies, same-sex marriages, exploiting kids, alcohol, steroid abuse. And I like going into all that. I mean, my partner at the time, was really hesitant about the direction I was going because I wanted to go darker. And he said, it's a comedy. I said, it's always going to be a comedy, but I think we can go darker. We can go, we'll be much better if we go into darker issues to be more relevant. And the show became much darker or went more socially conscious. Even though it was comedy, we became as we went along. I would say starting in season 3, we really started to go in that direction. And the show got better because of it, I think.
When the show ended, were you satisfied with that ending?
I got a call. I just got back from Europe and I got a call that night at 12 o'clock at night that they weren't picking up the show. I mean, I was satisfied in the sense that we had done really good work. And I was very pleased that we went on a very strong note. I would have liked to squeeze one more year out of it, but that's okay. That's okay. I mean, it went out when it did. And the basic thing was we went up in the ratings for 7 consecutive years. Every year we went up in the ratings. And not many shows do that. Not many shows on HBO did that. The Sopranos actually didn't even do that for one season. They lost ratings one year. Now, they had bigger ratings than us to begin with. They had about 2 or 3 times our ratings. But they did not go up every year. Most shows don't do that. We went up every year for 7 consecutive years, I was very happy about that. The first season we were about 70% male audience. And then by the time we ended, we were 53% female. That being because by that time we were following Sex in the City. And I had to hold on to as much of that audience as I could. And so I skewed more stories toward the Rita character, which was Sandra Oh. Because I thought she was my conduit to holding on to more of the female audience. And it was successful.
Interacting with a lot of the big named athletes of that time, I mean, that must have been like a dream come true for you.
It's quite overrated, actually. I enjoyed a few of them. I enjoyed all of them. They're all good guys. They were all fine. But they were strictly texture for me. They were wallpaper. They were texture. We would throw it out because they didn't actually push plot. I mean, you couldn't ask them to do any kind of, the structure. With rare exceptions. I will give rare exceptions to a few. And most of them because I knew them. Roger Clemens, Barry, Bob Costas, a couple of them I knew. So I could ask them, I could push them, I could ask them to do stuff that, could go a little bit more towards the narrative. But most of the time they were there they were great guys. Every one. Roy Jones Jr. was very smart. But they were texture. But it was fun meeting him. It was a lot of fun meeting him and I had a great time. Yeah, the first year we just did the first year the other day, and a 17-year-old Kobe Bryant. Yeah, it was the first thing he had just signed his contract about a week before he did the show, and he was great. He was charming. He was 17.
Who knew, right? At that time, some of your career kind of intersects with that of Robin Williams, right? Didn't you audition for The World According to Garp?
I did. I actually did. I met with the director. But that wasn't going to happen. The studio was not going with me. They were going with Robin. I actually had met Robin when I first started stand-up comedy. Say around 78, 1978, because Robin was in the clubs. He had come from the West Coast. He was coming through New York, and Robin was destroying houses. I mean, everybody knew about Robin Williams. It was already the Underground Railroad was knowing about him. But we met in New York, and we became friendly. Then I got to do Good Morning Vietnam. Robin was not only a great comic, he's a great human being. Robin is really missed. I miss him as much personally. I miss him because of the heart and the human being that he was, and the wonderful person that he was, as much as I miss the comedy, for sure. People say, was Robin on all the time? It was absolutely not. We would discuss politics, and we discuss, serious issues, historical or social issues, stuff like that. Robin was very interested in all that.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your writing career, too. I know that you wrote for the Oscars, mostly with Billy Crystal. When you write for the Oscars, do they put a restriction on what you can write, or are you just really kind of writing for the host, or how does that work?
Okay, now my job was writing with Billy. What had happened is Billy had seen me in a club doing my act, and he asked me to help him. His manager was a friend of mine, and they asked me if I wanted to help Billy write jokes for hosting the Grammys. We did the Grammys 2 or 3 times first. And we had a great time. And it was a very good relationship. And it was just the two of us. In fact, the first year we did the Oscars, it was just the two of us. That's writing Billy stuff now. There's other people who are writing all the presenter stuff or, the other speeches and stuff. But the Billy stuff, the monologue, the interstitial stuff, it was just me and him. Nowadays, the host probably has 15 writers. It's amazing. It was just me and Billy in the beginning, and then we had Bruce Valanche and Mark Kanan for the musical, for the medley in the beginning. But it was just us, and it was great. It was restriction-wise, no. We never had any, because we were pretty good self-censoring ourselves. No, we liked that. I mean, no, there was never any self-censorship.
Also having a good sense of, the movies that were out and knowing how Billy delivers a joke and everything like that. It's probably easier to gel together like that as well.
We never had a disagreement about what the take should be. It was the whole idea that I think we agreed upon, that I think they've lost through the year personally, is it's not your show. It's not the host show. It's not the Billy Crystal show. It's not the host show. It's the Academy Awards, and you happen to be the MC. So do your 10-minute opening up front, get your 8 minutes out there, and then get out of the way. The show is slow enough. There's too many awards nobody cares about. So for whatever you do, only makes the show longer. And you got to also remember, with the audience that you're playing to in that room, with each category that goes by, 80% of the people in that category, 4 out of the 5 nominees, have lost. And they've been there for 3 or 4 hours before the show starts, and they want to get out of it. And they're not in a really good mood. So you have to keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. So, so we were always in sync that way.
Your answer actually helped me kind of segue into my next question. I guess I know what your answer is going to be. I was going to ask you how you felt about a no-host Oscars. You're okay with it as long as the show moves?
Absolutely.
I want to ask you another question regarding the Oscars, and I know that you are a major serious voter for the Academy, and you take that very seriously. I know you have very strong opinions about it. Maybe you can kind of help me with this too. I hope that I'm explaining this correctly. This year, they changed for what the Best Picture nominees. I guess they originally had to debut somewhere in LA County in a theater, but they said, well, because of everything that's going on with the pandemic, they kind of waived that. Is that correct?
No, that's not quite correct. Throughout the years, you've always had a picture to be qualified, had to play in a theater in New York or Los Angeles for at least 1 week. That was always a qualification. They had to play for at least 1 week. I think they're waiving that this year because there are no movie theaters right now. I don't know what that means as far as television. If, for example, my friend who my partner in Arli just produced the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. I don't know if he's eligible for an Oscar or not, but that's a TV show that was made for TV. Now, the O.J. Simpson thing did play in the theaters for a week and did win the Oscar, but it actually played in the theater, but it was always designed to play 1 week in the theater. So I don't know. I'll have to ask Michael about that, if he's eligible or not.
Do you think that rule would change, being that you have so many streaming venues now. I mean, you had Roma a couple of years ago that basically debuted on Netflix.
There was other theaters.
But do you think that streaming movies they'll let it bypass that rule in the future? Or?
Well, this is a rare situation here. Streaming is not going away. It's not going to go away. And if anything, I think you're going to see less theaters anyway. You're going to see less theaters. You're going to see, as much as it is now, I think you're going to have more movies geared towards a younger demographic, because that's who goes to the movies. So I think your more ambiguous movies, your more intellectual movies, your more literate movies are not going to be, your more adult movies are not going to be in theaters very long. So I don't see that happen. I think there's going to be less theaters. And no, it's basically your delivery service. So the distribution has changed. So I don't think you have to be in a movie. I don't think you have to be in a movie theater. I don't think you have to do that at all. I don't think that's a big deal.
Now, I wanted to bring up one other thing, and this was one thing that I was reading about you, and I did not know this, and I was very excited. And I think when I first responded to your assistant, Chris, I said, this is incredible, because you were actually one of the, I guess, a story editor or a writer on the TV show Police Squad, which is like one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
It was a great learning experience, Police Squad. We were off the air fast.
You see, that I was scratching my head after that, Robert, because, I mean, they did 6 incredibly funny episodes, and poof, it was gone. It was like, what are you doing?
We were gone after 4 episodes. It was only later that they still did the other 2. Here's the thing, Police Squad, you talk about something ahead of their time. Tony Thermopoulos, the head of HBO television at the time, made a comment that the problem with Police Squad is you have to watch it, which sounds ridiculous on the surface, but he's making a point in the fact that you don't have to watch sitcoms on TV. You can walk around the room. There's always a laugh track. There's a certain rhythm. Hey, what do you think, sucker? Well, that'll be the day. You're not going to miss anything on TV. Police Squad was visual. Police Squad had sight gags. They had sight gags. There was stuff going on that you did have to see. And there was no laugh track. It was single camera with no, so you did have to watch it. And that didn't sit well with an audience that was geared at that time on ABC, which was the #1 network at that time. And their tentpoles were Happy Days, Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley. And so it was it was Gary Marshall stuff. And then suddenly we come along and follow these shows, and we lost the audience. That audience didn't watch our show. In fact, I'll never forget that the year just before we got canceled, Joni Loves Chachi. We were like a number 64 show, and Joni Loves Chachi was number 2. So we didn't fit in what they were doing right there, and the advertisers were losing too much. Now, had we been on like NBC, which at the time was the number 3 network, we might have stayed longer. But that wasn't to be. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about writing and structure.
You really don't see a lot of shows that were like that, where it was funny beginning to end, nonstop. And yes, you did definitely have to pay attention. I think The Simpsons was like the only show I can think of in that era that really capitalized on visual gags as well. But Police Squad really just broke the mold. It was so different from everything else. I think that was probably what I loved so much about it.
When does The Simpsons start? When do they begin? Tracy Ullman show.
Yeah, so it was the late 80s, I believe, the mid to late 80s.
Yeah, I think so too. But you got to remember, Police Squad is, 82? Yeah, so that's a lot. That's considerably later. Yeah, it's a great credit, and I'm very happy about it.
I know you are a big movie buff, so I'm going to throw a couple of movie questions at you. What would you say are your 3 favorite movies?
No particular order. I would put the 1942 Ernst Lubitsch movie, To Be or Not to Be, with Jack Benny and Carol Lombard. I would have Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly. I might have Charade with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn. I have to have a Western because I love Westerns, and I'll throw 2 of them out there. One is The Big Country with Gregory Peck and Chuck Connors and Charlton Heston, directed by William Wyler. And the other would be The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance with John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart and Lee Marvin. One of my favorites, Casablanca, I'd have to put in there. Chinatown and L.A. Confidential. I mean, those 2. I'll make that an entry. My favorite Hitchcock films would be North by Northwest and Foreign Correspondent. I like The Social Network a lot. I think that's a great movie. Pulp Fiction's a pretty great movie. Well, the Kubrick film, The Clockwork, I love. Paths of Glory.
You gave me a good list. Have you seen anything recently that you really like?
I like La La Land a lot. I like Roma. What movies I've seen I really like? Sure there are. Epic and Wake by Warren Beatty. I like a lot. I like Shampoo a lot also.
Now, you also did a show about history as well with Assume the Position. How did you come about to do a show like that?
We had just finished Arliss, and I went to HBO and said, here's what I got an idea for. I'm not quite sure yet what it is, but I want to do something with history and bringing it to today, show how history and pop culture interact. And I want to do it in front of a real college audience. So we did. So that's how, and I would workshop it out here in Los Angeles, and I'd go to each campus, and I'd have like 5 or 10 people, and I'd build this monologue and build these stories. And then when it got together, we went to New York and we did it in front of NYU students, and I had a great time. They're difficult to do, but boy, did I love it.
We have a portion of the show that I just started, and it's called Totally Random Questions, and some of them will have to do with you, and some of them are just a little off the wall. So are you ready for some?
Totally random questions. Totally random questions.
I am.
All right, so if you actually were a sports agent, what athlete would you like to represent? And it could be anyone, living or dead, throughout any other course of sports.
Well, you'd want to, as an agent, you'd want to represent the guy who made the most money. If you talk about people I'd like to know, I would like to talk to, Ali, but you're not going to represent. I mean, there's a difference between representing somebody and getting to know them. With all the athletes I had about 200 athletes. I only asked for one autograph the whole time I was there. It's like I only asked for one autograph, and that was Jim Brown, because I found him fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Kareem is another fascinating person. But again, it's not that I want to represent him. It's just that I talk to him about big time world things. So but that's not about representing. That's about dollars and cents. That's business.
All right. What's the most used app on your phone apart from your phone?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess Safari.
Because you like being on the web and just kind of keeping current with everything.
Yeah, I would say or the MLB app.
You were on the $10,000 Pyramid with Sandy Duncan, and you were on the dating game 4 times. What game show would you want to be on?
Because I had 4 times or 3 times. I don't remember. You have to remember, dating game. When I first came out to California, the dating game was a paid. You paid to go on. Like it was a SAG show after a show. You got paid to go on. I think it was like $450, $500. So that paid your rent for the month. So they used a lot of comics. Actually, Steve Martin in, what did I just see? 1966. He's on the dating game. Tom Selleck was on the dating game. Andy Kaufman, Paul Rubens. A lot of comics. They used comics because they knew they could count on them to be entertaining. So I went on about 3 or 4 times. Yeah. And because it was a payday and I paid my rent.
When you went on multiple times, did you have to use a different name or you were still just Robert Wuhl?
I was never Robert.
No?
No, I was Lawrence Talbot, the Wolf Man. I was, I forgot all the names I used. I forgot the names I used. I don't think I was ever Robert Wuhl.
Is there a game show that you would like to be on even now? Like, would you ever do like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something like that?
Yeah, maybe. It's funny. The Pyramid, I used to watch with my roommate in college before I left for New York. And we'd watch it every day, and I was pretty good. I said, when I go to New York, I'm going to try to get on this show. And I got on the show, and I won the show, and I never watched it another time since. It's one of those things is like, I've done it, move on. But I would do, I was on Hollywood Squares a few times with Whoopi, which I enjoyed. Yeah, sure. It's a good, I would have fun. I see shows on now that are pretty good. I mean, so yeah, that wouldn't bother me.
I will go on to the next question. What was your wedding song?
I know my mother played, because we got married in her apartment, but I think our wedding song might have been Sunny Side of the Street.
And what would be your dream role? If it was any movie, any TV show, what part would you love to play?
If I could sing better, I would like to have been the music man, maybe. Max Bialystock is a good one, producers.
Okay, I like it. You are working on a baseball book.
Yes, I'm writing a baseball book, conversations with baseball people, and I love baseball. And I'm going to write about my love of baseball, along with every manager I've ever talked to. I ask them how much of your job duties are between the lines, like once the game starts, because that's all the public ever sees is when the game starts. And invariably, they come back with about 20%. That's once the game starts, it's in the player's hands most of the time. You make a move here, you change a lineup, but basically it's in the player's hands. So I said, okay, what's the other 80%? So that's what I'm writing about. I'm writing about organizations, about what goes on in the organization, from the owner to the general manager to the audio, and to all those people and what their job duties are, how they build a ball club, an organization, along with my little stories about my love of baseball, my opinions on it.
What was your favorite team growing up?
Well, when I was young, the Yankees, because the Mets weren't quite there yet, and the Dodgers and the Giants had left. So the Yankees. And then the Mets showed up, but they sucked. And then the Yankees sucked too. But then I went to school in Houston, and I started selling beer in the Astros. I have a motto. My motto is, life is always better when the home team wins. And I don't mean just in sports. I mean in politics, in family, in business, in school. Life is better when the home team wins. So luckily I live in New York and LA, so I've got a couple of good teams. Also, but I like baseball. I mean, I like good organizations. I've always been a fan of the Baltimore Orioles. I root for Houston too, because I used to, I had some great years there. I sold beer in the Astrodome, and my friends are there. And I have a friend who's a general manager, so I root for his team. It's a business, so I want my friends to do well in business.
I have actually exhausted every question that I have here.
Good.
And I really appreciate you coming down and enlightening us. And I really enjoyed this visit. So thanks a lot for coming on.
My pleasure, Jim. Enjoy.
Special thanks to Mr. Robert Wuhl for coming on down to the Sherpa screening room. And a special shout out goes out to Chris, his assistant, for helping everything happen. Really appreciate it, Chris. Hey, if you like this show, you can follow us on social media. Just use the word Sherpalution for Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. And I'm there. And you can listen to the show, where, on your favorite podcast app, or at my website, Sherpalution.com. Next week, we'll be back to Too Many Podcasts, and we will be talking to a guy named Rick Soderbeer, and he's a relationship expert. And we had a lot of fun speaking. Of course, we always have fun in the Sherpa Chalet. Why wouldn't we not? If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be doing this. You know that. You'll really enjoy it next week, too. But thank you so much for tuning in to Hollywood Week. Hope you've caught all the episodes. And if not, subscribe to the show, and you'll always catch my episodes. So that'll do it for me. Mr. Bruce, I know you wouldn't put anything in the punch. I'm just going to leave it at that. You have to see the movie to get the reference, folks, just so you understand Dudley's joke at the beginning of the show. Yes, the Sherpalution studio players, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, Mr. Bruce, if you could please show our crowd to the door. Be careful out in that parking lot, folks. Bye. See you next week. Viva la Sherpalution.
Thanks for listening to the Sherpa Screening Room. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. I'm Mr. Bruce, and this has been a Sherpalution Studios production. Viva la Sherpalution!